it's Danny. Welcome to this video, welcome to this channel, and if you're returning, welcome back. Deep gratitude to you for joining me today.
So what are we doing today? It's your face again. Yes, it is my face. I'm here to talk about HBO's It, Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 2. It opens up with us reliving the trauma of watching these kids get got. So we're pretty much in Lily's point of view because it turns out it's just her dream, but we watch the kids get murked again, and she wakes up in a fucking sweat. I shouldn't curse that much, but she wakes up in a sweat. We see the first like opening credits, and it is the creepiest thing you've ever witnessed because it's like a jaunty tune about putting ribbons in your hair. Meanwhile, the visuals is like traditional like 50s clips, like, you know, those like you see like a blonde white family with like 2.5 kids and a dog and a picket fence, like those people getting subjugated on by like disaster, blood and gore and all the things. And meanwhile we're listening to this jaunty tune. Crazy. When on closer inspection, a lot of the things depicted in this opening credit are events that happen in Derry, and it's a part of the It lore. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the clips, like the scene where the main street is getting like pumed up, that is going to be season 2 of the show, because as we know, it has a 27-year like feeding cycle, and right now we're in like 1962. 27 years prior is gonna be, oh my bad, not 1930s, it's gonna be 1935, where we see like the shootout situation. And the previous clip in the intro was like a factory like in flames, and so that's going to be season 3. Allegedly, I don't know, I don't work for the show, this is what the YouTube streets are saying. So we are in Handsome Hank's house, and Hank and his mama are going at it, talking about like how this is unfair, and they're noticing that there were cops watching Hank's house. The mom points it out, and Hank and his mama go back and forth about like, what are they gonna do? And like, she's his alibi, and he's like, oh, nobody's gonna believe that. And old Ronnie is ear hustling in the background, talking about, are they gonna take you away? And both of them like, no, baby, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. They do the black thing, like, oh, forget what you heard, everything's gonna be great, even though they know for a fact everything will not be great. But I gotta say, Hank is a great dad. So then we move over to, we see the next scene is we see the sexy airman. Hannon is the Handsy airman, and he's welcoming his family home. We get a little hint about like how things are in the world, where Leroy's like, hey, it took you so long to get here, I've been waiting. And his wife, beautiful Charlotte, is saying like, well, yeah, we had to drive real slow because we're in a time where the cops, I mean, we're still in that time, but the cops can pull you over for anything. Oh, they see a black person driving, we're gonna pull you over. So she was being mindful of that because obviously she's with her son. Leroy got his son, who we learn is Will. Yeah. And so Leroy got Will a telescope, and he advises Will to spy on neighbors, and both Will and Charlotte are like, what? That's weird, bro. And also Charlotte is concerned with their safety and well-being, because we learned something really freaking cool about Charlotte. The next scene is we're at the high school, the opening moniker of the high school, and they have enacted a curfew because like a bunch of kids got. We see old bug eyes, Margie. She rolls up to the popular girls and she starts making jokes and whatever, and the Regina Georgia of the situation is just like, yo, chill out. Margie, bug eyes, wants so badly to be accepted by these heifers, and it makes her really unlikable to me. I don't know if anybody else feels like that. How do you guys feel about Margie, aka bug eyes? The mean girls clock Ronnie going back to school, which is something that the mama and old sexy Hank were talking about, if she should go back to school or not. And the mean girls, little Barbie ass bitches, are like, oh, I can't believe she showed her face, da 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 da. And then Margie clocks that Ronnie is talking to her friend Lily, and she's like, uh-oh, this is not gonna look good for me. which is another reason why I can't stand Margie. Like, why are you sucking their butt cheeks like this? The next scene is they're in the classroom and Lily is in like zoned out in space, and Margie tries to check in on her and she's just like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. And Lily's like, yeah, kind of saw people get murked. Not necessarily in the mood to talk. And so we see Will come into the same classroom, and also, yeah, Lily shuts old Bug Eyes down because she's like, I don't want you being seen talking to Ronnie. It looks bad for you. And Lily's like, girl, it looks bad for you. Anyhow, the next part is we see Will run into the classroom. The old hating ass, I think racist teacher is just like, you have a concept of time? And Will's like, you mean relativity? And the teacher's like, wait, what? So she's like, have a seat. Next time, no. So we already know the kids are going to be assholes. He tries to sit down. The little white kid behind him moves out of his chair. He falls to the ground. His pencil goes rolling. And this cute little Cuban kid, Rich Santos, is like remarking on his pencil, like, this is a really good pencil. And that is a boy after my own heart, because I love me a good pencil or pen. Check out my planning videos. So the next scene, they're back on base. Remember the last episode, Leroy got his ass beat in a weird dynamic where some guy was standing to the side watching like a weirdo. Another man was holding his head or his face, asking for the codes to the secret whatever, and another guy was like beating his ass with a whatchamacallit, and he was saved by his boy Russo, who like karate chopped the hell out of these bastards, even though he's like half the size of all the men in the room. But anyhow, they find out that they accuse the same racist who wouldn't salute Leroy in the beginning as being the guy, and Hank's like, nah, he knows it's not right. So he asked the guy who conducted the investigation, like, oh, was that gun blah, 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 and like something, a Soviet gun. And the guy's like, yeah, piece of scum. And he's just like, why do you want to know? And Sexy Leroy is like, oh, well, I just want to know, I want to tell my grandkids that I looked at the face of death and I survived, which is weird because we know that Hank survived actually getting his face damn near blown off in Korea. The next scene, we see Charlotte, Leroy's wife, walking through the town, and people are good morning her and also giving her the eye, like, ew, not another black person. She buys some flowers, and as she's walking with those flowers, a pickup truck starts screaming, and I'm like, oh god, no, already with the racism, like the overt racism in broad daylight. No, they throw an egg at the Paul Bunyan sign because the Paul Bunyan statue is about to be built, and it's a point of contention. When she walks into the butcher shop, the old lady, one of the ladies of the South, not the ladies of the South, that's another thing, but the gentle women of Maine, I don't know, it's she's like, we won't stand for this statue, and we meet the butcher. Now the butcher seems nice. He's just like, oh, she asked for a roast. And he's just like, oh, are you driving through? She's like, oh, I guess I look different. You know, she's pointing out the fact that I'm black, you white. And he's just like, no, I didn't mean it like that. He comes off very gentle, very sincere, but I'm like, And then he holds with the cleaver, like the kids call me like some kind of cleaver name. And I'm like, that's not good. The mom, as she's waiting for a roast, she looks outside and there's a bunch of kids just beating the bricks, chasing down a little kid, beating the bricks off of him. And she's like, what the hell? Isn't anybody, and you see like adults walking by just glancing like, oh, kids beating each other up, and they're just like null and void. Nobody is saying anything. But they were just walking by like nothing happened. And I think that plays into the psychology of the influence of the it being like living underneath this town. So Charlotte, being the person that she is, she runs out and she stops them. Oh, before she runs out, she's like, why isn't anyone stopping this? The butcher's like, oh, boys will be boys. And right there, I was just like, I don't like this motherfucker. So she runs out, she stops the beating, and it's kind of like animalistic. The way they kind of look at her, they look back at the kid jumps up and runs. The kid that was getting beat up jumps up and runs, and they run after after the kid. And as she's like looking confused, like, what the heck just I witnessed? What just happened? What is going on? all the people who live in the town are staring at her in such a way that I don't know if it's like, oh, this black woman is intervening on these white kids' business. I don't know if it's a racial thing. I don't know if it's like an outsider thing, or I don't know what it is, but it made me wildly uncomfortable. And she was looking around like, what the hell? Flash forward to the scene with her family. She's telling Leroy and her son, like, yo, like, what, this is some crazy stuff that I just witnessed. I should call the parents and da-da-da-da. And Will's like, please don't. You're embarrassing me. She measures him. She's showing him love. Like, she's such a sweet woman. And she's just like, she low-key, high-key is like, hey, did anything happen to you? Now, we saw his first day of school. We saw that old boy got the chair pulled out from under him. He's like, oh, nothing happened. And the mom's like, mm-mm. And Leroy's like, leave him alone. And then they start going back and forth about, like, Leroy and Charlotte start going back and forth about, like, not getting in trouble, not making any fanfare. And Will's like, can you guys stop fighting? And they both say at the same time, we're not fighting. This is how we talk. And I was just like, oh, they are fighting, and this is how they fight. The kid's like, can I get the hell out of here? I don't want no parts of this. I want to go. And they're like, yeah, you're excused. And then then the parents really start going at it. Like, ultimately, Charlotte was a rebel rouser of some sort, and Leroy is like, you can't do that here. Let's just fly under the radar. Let's mind our business. Like, that's a value difference. Like, if you're with somebody who just wants to fly under the radar, doesn't care about, like, social justice, doesn't care about other people like that, doesn't care about the community like that, just wants to ride along to get along, follows rules and regulations. If I'm under here, I'm going to stay under here. Versus Charlotte, who's like, right is right. I'm going to fight for what's right. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to, like, they are not, that's not compatible in the long scheme of things. Lesson, kids. If your values don't align with your partner, it will not work. So he claims, she's like, why are you coming at me like Thugbusters? And Leroy's like, oh, I had a bad day. And she's like, well, tell me about it. He's like, I can't. And she's like, well, we're all three of us are living separate lives, and all I want to do is connect with my family. And that's how the scene ends. I'm like, ooh, this isn't good. Next scene is Ronnie. She's in her bedroom, lying in bed, listening to sexy Hank and his mama, like, go back and forth about how to proceed with all the things that are happening. And it's like listening to your children of divorce, or children with parents who have a horrible relationship can relate to this. Like, lying in bed, be like, oh man, shut up. Like, that's what it was like. I felt so bad for her. So she covers her head, and this is where it's not like how our experiences as children of divorce. Suddenly, she can't get out from under the blanket, and the blanket turns into like a mucus membrane that mirrors what we think a uterus looks like. And suddenly there's goo and gunk dripping on this girl as she's trying to escape from this plasma thing, and then she is birthed in what I would describe as horrible. Like, if this is what babies go through, no wonder they're screaming out of the top of their lungs, this is horrible. So she gets birthed. She's all gooeyed up, and it's disgusting. It's visceral. It's just disgusting. She pops out. She looks back, and she sees her dead mama in a wedding dress. Now, it's not her mama, because her mama looks Ashton, like she's been charcoaled black. And we know, in one of the previous scenes, we see a picture of the mama in that same dress on the mantle, and she did not look like that. So obviously we know it's it, like, doing its thug fizzle in the form of Ronnie's mother, and it's like accusing her of killing her while she birthed her. You ripped me apart, and all the things. And then suddenly, mind you, her legs are apart, like she's just given birth, because she's technically just given birth, and suddenly her vagine opens up to the same claw-like situation we see from It, like with the teeth, with the that's what we see. And we realize Ronnie's still attached to the longest umbilical cord in life, and the starts dragging her in by the umbilical cord. Ronnie is like scratching and surviving, but she's slippery as hell because she just came out of like she just was given birth to, so babies apparently are slippery. I don't know these things. I am so child free. Anyhow, so she's like trying to kick and claw. She kicks the crap. She kicks the crap out of the thingy, yanks her umbilical cord, and then the woman's like, oh, you think you can escape? The creature like gets up, does the with the neck, and rolls up real fast, gets all haunted and like the hair blowing like Beyonce, gets up in the face, and Ronnie starts screaming. Suddenly Sexy Hank opens the door, grabs her and holds her, and she looks back, creature's gone, no birth solution on her body, and she is bugging the fuck out. That was horrible. Can we stop it with the birth scenes, please? I'm asking for all of us, because nobody wants to see that shit. We're at the bar. The Black Airman, minus Leroy, Halloran is the main. Dick Halloran, or Richard Halloran, is the main in the situation. He's with his boys and like two other black airmen. They're sitting around talking crap about being questioned for what happened to Leroy. And they're talking about how he got beat down and we were questioned for hours and they wanted to pin it on us. And then they asked Halloran, how long were you questioned? He's like, oh, I wasn't questioned, because we know he's on special assignment. And as the episode progressed, we learn what that special assignment is. Anywho, the police chief comes through in the same bar, which is interesting. And then he gets like flanked by a city councilman and his flunky. I assume he's a very important white man. They're both white men, and all of them are white men. So the chief, they bully him and say, when are you gonna arrest old Sexy Hank? You know, if you don't want to do your job, don't do your job. And he's just like, well, this is not the South. I'm like, so the police chief, feeling like a little saucy, having been threatened and bullied about, he says Hank had an alibi and we have to do our due diligence. I'm not just going to arrest somebody just simply because of X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, you better, or we'll find somebody else who will do your job. And so in the circle of being yelled at, he tells the barman to kick out the black guys. And what's interesting, the black airmen, and what's interesting in this situation is how Halloran knew that they were about to get kicked out. He's like, let's go, guys. And they're like, what do you mean? And then they saw the guy come up to them as if to throw them out. And he offers to like, hey, let's go get moonshine. I know where we could get some moonshine. And so next scene in the woods, the airmen, wait. Next scene, we're in the woods and the Air Force people are digging. We see a group of indigenous folks with binoculars peeping what the airmen are digging for. The next scene is that the airmen walk back to the base, stumbling and whatevering, like trying to get on, and the guy's like, oh, the base is on lockdown, what are you guys doing out? And Halloran's like, call so-and-so, say I'm out here. And he's just like, okay. So he calls whoever's in charge and says, oh, boy's out here. And they're like, let him through. And he was just like, what? Okay, yes. And he let him through. And his boys, the airmen, Halloran's boys are like, what the hell? Who are you? What are you doing in this base? Fast forward, we see the air people digging. Halloran's in charge. He is hung the F over, and the guy in charge is like, oh, I'm on to you and your antics, you out drinking, you abusing the special privileges of being center in this thing. We haven't found anything because of you, you're on some BS. And so in the next scene, Halloran's like, kind of takes it on the chin, and then he turns around and vomits when the guy leaves. And that's dubbed over with a mashed potato scene, because now we're back in the high school. Lily, we see Lily with her tray of mashed potatoes, which is gross how they transition that. So Lily with her mashed potatoes walks by Margie, Bug Eyes, and sits away from her and the Mean Girls. Ronnie rolls through to talk about what happened to her last night with the whole birthing situation, and the Mean Girls ask Bug Eyes about Lily being crazy. And you could tell the leader of the gang hates how funny Margie is, because Margie will flip like accusations or discomfort and say, oh, let's make a joke of it. And then the Mean Girl's like, oh, weren't you wearing that sweater yesterday? Ew, hater. Anyhow, so Ronnie and Lily are going back and forth, and we clip Ronnie and Lily talking about like what's happening, what they witnessed, how to like, because Ronnie's like, you have to tell them my father wasn't there because it's getting worse for us. And Lily's like, they're not going to believe me. And they're going back and forth, back and forth. And this is being clipped together, pieced together with the patty cakes, which is the Mean Girls, doing patty cake, and they're all joining along. And you could hear Lily and Ronnie voices elevating to the point where Ronnie pops the up because Lily kind of cops out like, oh, we can't do anything about it. Ronnie pops the fuck up and she's like, well, that's bullshit. She said it with her whole chest, and everyone was like, argh, and looked over. And she stood there kind of unashamed. She kind of looked around like, yeah, I said it. And the mean ass racist ass teacher collects her and says, let's go. So Will is chilling in the hallway eating lunch because, you know, it sucks being black in the 60s in this school. And he runs into the Cuban kid who's eating an empanada, and I was immediately hungry and I was mad at him for it. They are introduced to each other. Will and Rich talk back and forth. We see the Mean Girls pass by, and Rich has a thing for Margie, and he's looking at her, and then one of the Mean Girls gives him the finger. I'm like, ew. And then him and Will start talking back and forth, and then someone throws a smoke bomb. Rich runs the hell on, like, get out of here. Will doesn't realize what it is. He gets caught in it and then runs into the teacher, the mean racist teacher, as he's trying to escape the smoke bomb. So he gets smoked by the bomb, and he runs into the teacher, and he gets in trouble. So the next scene, Will and Ronnie are in detention. Ronnie's holding her nose because Will stinks. And then he says like the most beautiful thing. He's just like, well, I got blamed for it, but it wasn't me, obviously. He says like, yeah, I stink, but I made the chemicals that made that stink are the same chemicals that are a part of make the atmosphere for like Venus or Jupiter, for Venus, I think. And he's like, I made a stardust. And I'm like, who says things like that? Oh, anyhow. So Ronnie also, she's like, oh, little William Shakespeare over here. Will Shakespeare, get out. They start talking about science, and she notices that he's reading a book about science, and she's like, that's not on the syllabus. And he tries to hide the fact that he's nerdy, and she's like, explain science to me. Why is it interesting? And this is so cute. They're cute. Summer lovin'. Did you want to sing Summer Lovin'? I did. Anyhow, Ronnie looks out the window and she notices the police are collecting Lily into a cop car, and that Ronnie is like panicking because she knows it's no good for her. The next scene is the police station. We see posters of all the missing kids, which is the legacy of Derry, and Bowers kind of uses Lily's reputation for being crazy, because remember when her dad passed and she was grieving, but apparently 1960s doesn't understand what grief is. Bowers uses Lily's reputation for being crazy because of her stay at Juniper Hill to intimidate her about Hank. So she kind of incriminates Hank. And then Hank gets arrested. Ronnie freaks the fuck out, runs off. Hank's mama is begging the cops like, hey, please don't take my son. He has an alibi, blah, blah, blah. Ronnie books it to Lily's house. She takes off running and bangs on Lily's door, confronts Lily. The mom opens the door and she's like, you get the hell out of here before I call your grandmother. And Ronnie's like, dude, you lied. You didn't do the right thing. You know my dad wasn't there. You didn't tell the truth. And she's screaming and hollering outside the door. The mom threatens her, Ronnie, and shuts the door in her face. Ronnie's standing there yelling at the house like big britches. Next scene, we see Leroy, the sexy airman, visit the guy who was accused of orchestrating the beatdown. And he kind of calls him out on the fact that he's read his files. He knows he's not capable of handling that gun because that gun is really complicated to load, it's complicated to shoot, and he doesn't have the wherewithal because Massa, whatever his name is, he is a subpar airman. He makes a lot of mistakes. He is not very mechanically skilled. He puts down a gun that's unloaded and leaves the clip on the outside, and then he starts insulting him about like having sex with his mother, and Masters loses his and starts to whatchamacallit the gun. Well, he couldn't do it. He couldn't load the weapon. He couldn't manage the weapon at all. He had no experience, proving to Leroy that whoever held the gun to him, it wasn't Master. Leroy Hanlon goes over to Shaw and says to Shaw, like, hey, you got the wrong guy in jail. He couldn't do it. And then as Shaw is going back and forth, Hanlon is really, really smart, like his son. And he's just observing, like, I feel like he suspected that Shaw had something to do with it, but he obviously wanted to get proof. Like, he is very much an investigator. So he gathered evidence and he brought it to Shaw. Shaw kind of admits that he orchestrated it because he was looking for someone like Leroy, a man without fear. He says it's a test. Hanlon's kind of pissed off about it, and Shaw won't give, but offers more info. He offers more information about, like, why he was looking for him. So next scene, we see Lily. Lily's walking through the grocery store, and Lily runs into a worker who's like, oh, Lily, you're here again. And she's like, yeah, my mom's doing a double. So that means Lily is pretty much on her own a lot, which is interesting. Anyhow, she is walking through the store. Weird announcements are popping off. People are side-eyeing her from jump before it starts getting weird. It starts getting weird as she's going through the aisles. The shelves start moving behind her. And then we notice that there's a dude kind of doing the gangster lean, kind of peeping behind her, sneaking behind her. She keeps turning around, and then she starts hearing whispers like, you're crazy, you shouldn't be here, like, just. And little by little she gets boxed in. She sees a wall of, like, cornflakes, and on the box there's, like, images of her friends who died, the kids that died, on the box, decaying slowly, except Phil didn't decay, which is interesting. And she turns around, she sees a jar of pickles, and then the pickle face turns into, like, her dad, and her dad's like, you got a kiss for daddy. I'm like, oh. And so she grabs the jar, breaks it, and a bunch of jars starts breaking, and then the thing starts collecting body parts and starts moving towards her. Give me a kiss for daddy. And she's screaming, losing her ever-living shit. It's pickles and jars and glass everywhere. Mind you, she doesn't get cut. She just falls back and she starts pushing back in all this pickle and all this juice, and the creature comes up to her real close, and she's screaming, and then suddenly, it looked like Jabba the Hutt, really. It looked fucking crazy. The shop owner screams at her like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, you never seen a panic attack? I digress. But anyhow, he's like, what's wrong with you? The next scene, we're on base, and Shaw takes Hanlon to a restricted area, the restricted area that Russo pointed out while they were driving through base in the last episode. And they're working on Operation Precept, that they want to win the Cold War before it starts by weaponizing a creature of some kind. Well, they don't say a creature. They're like, it's something that has been buried in Derry for a very long time. It generates fear, and they feel like they could use it. They could grab this creature and drop it. Oh, edges on the table. They're talking about a creature that was dropped in Derry many, many years ago, and they're hoping to find the pillars that keeps it contained, or push it closer together so that they can contain this creature, grab it, and bring it to, like, the Cubans or the Russians to end the Cold War. That's what they're doing. That's why they're digging, because they're looking for the markers that keep the creature contained. Another dude interrupts them, and because they're in the main office talking about, like, Operation Perception or whatever. Another dude interrupts them, and this is the guy who was yelling at hollering at the dig site, like, oh, we found something. And so they all rush to the dig site. We see Hollering or Dick in the background listening to the guy report to Shaw that we think we found something. Next scene, Lily's mom's taking Lily to the mental ward with no regard, unmoved, unfazed. Lily's crying her eyes out, like, don't leave me here. And she's just like, can't do nothing for you, babe. Next scene, last scene of the episode, we're at the dig. It's in the rain. They're all wearing raincoats, and they see that they pick up this car, and it's clearly dated from, like, the 1930s. And when the door pops open because it has mud and all the water and crap pushing the doors open. We see corpses, old school machine guns, and Shaw says, "We're close," and that's how the episode ends. So that was season 1, episode 2. What's the name of the episode? The Thing in the Dark. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do as you deem fit. Remember to question everything except your instincts, and I'll be sure to catch you on the flips. Bye.